Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So currently, as it stands today, the electoral map is probably going to come down to 7 single swing states. You know, people could talk about maybe on a good night for Trump, Virginia could get close. Doesn't really seem like Democrats, even on a good night for them, are going to do anything other than like a, 7-state sweep of these 7 swing states. But these are the main 7. And if Republicans, mainly Donald Trump, because he's the Republican nominee for president, if Donald Trump is to win, what is the easiest pathway for victory for him? This is a question that a lot of people have been asking, and there's been a clear answer. And we could talk about this, specific pathway a little bit more in depth. Today, we're going to focus mainly on one of those 3 states, but it's evident that if Donald Trump is going to win, he needs North Carolina. He probably gets North Carolina. He got North Carolina in 2020. You have new election legislation in North Carolina. You have a, Republican voter registration gain on net of a ridiculous amount of voters in North Carolina. It would take a really bad night for Donald Trump for him to lose the Tar Heel state. Now, it's also probably going to take, at least several other states of these 6 remaining ones for him to get over the 270 vote threshold. And it would make sense that he can get there the easiest way with the least amount of states. Not saying he can't go over, but, the easiest pathway would be you concentrate resources more so than not in the most crucial states, which would be the 2 biggest states. The second largest state here is Georgia. And Georgia is a state that, like North Carolina, has vastly changed their election laws since then. And are Democrats really going to get 2020 level, full turnout across the board in the state, especially, to win, given the current state of affairs? It's not exactly something that's going all that well for them. Now, Kamala Harris is a different candidate, but still, is she really going to be that good of a fit for potential swing voters and even a good fit for turnout beyond like the baseline enthusiasm that we see? Yeah, it doesn't exactly, seem as if Georgia is a state that she's favored in right now. It could be closer, but it would be a part of the easier, side of things for Donald Trump if he's going to have a pathway to 270, which he does have several. But the next question is, what state would need to fall for Trump to hit 270 of the remaining 5? That state is the most crucial state because it has the most electoral votes. It's extraordinarily competitive. It's been moving right at the presidential level in, the past decade or so, and that would be the state of Pennsylvania. Now, Joe Biden kind of had ties to Pennsylvania, and even then he was down in the state. Kamala Harris, she does not really have that many ties to the state of Pennsylvania. Biden's off the ballot. Trump is looking to, regain some of those voters in places like northeastern Pennsylvania by Scranton. He's doing better in places like the Philadelphia area, maybe not so much in the suburbs, but the rural part of the state. He's doing everything he can to drive out rural turnout. The ground game is crucial for Republicans there, but they have resources that they've invested in. You have phchase.com, which people can go to if they want to get involved if they live in Pennsylvania. Definitely, there's many avenues to do it, but if Trump gets those 3 swing states, he could lose Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and Nevada, even though I think he probably is favored in all 4 of those states except maybe Michigan. Then he's going to go out there and win the presidential election. So we decided, because we've done this before, we polled nationally, and we wanted to poll Pennsylvania. We'll poll North Carolina at some point. We will poll Georgia. If you guys want to help donate to the polling fund, we will link that. I'll link that in the description and the pinned comment down below if you guys want to, contribute, because these polls do cost money, but they're important, and we want to kind of, have them out and available for the public to counter the current polling narrative. And we polled it, and we got our result. Donald Trump is in the lead in Pennsylvania, according to our poll. He's up at 48%. Kamala Harris is at 47%. So you see this poll. We conducted it. We got the sample. We didn't see much response bias like we saw for the national poll. We weighted it properly in an unbiased fashion, unbiased, transparent manner. We got the data we got. We rolled with the data we got regardless, and Donald Trump is in the lead. Now, for the Senate race, Bob Casey, he's up, but there's a lot of undecided voters. He's not polling above Kamala Harris, which might be a little bit of a problem for him if those undecided voters do decide to come home. But this is a poll that Kamala Harris should be up in, believe it or not. You're talking about a poll that was conducted the day after her speech and the DNC. She should be operating at peak capacity. This is basically her peak, one could say. Historically, it would be. It should be. And instead, Donald Trump is polling at 48% in Pennsylvania. If he gets 49.4, 49.5 in the state, he basically is going to win, because there will be some third-party vote, even if it's going to be lower now with RFK Jr. out of the picture. But him endorsing Trump possibly could aid Donald Trump's margin. It was hard to gauge from the poll because it is true that, we did poll people. We asked, did you ever consider RFK Jr. this cycle? But keep in mind, a lot of reluctant Democrats, reluctant to support Biden, they have come home from RFK to Harris since then. So the remaining will likely now come home to Donald Trump. So it's kind of hard to gauge. But either way, this kind of runs contrary to a lot of the other recent polling that we've seen nationally, where Kamala Harris, and some of these polls that we've never heard of before, I've never seen any of their polls, but Kamala Harris now is getting these ridiculous leads in no-name pollsters. And the problem is that some of these pollsters were caught just objectively changing the results and changing the way of their methodology in a way that intentionally would skew towards Harris because of social desirability bias. When they polled normally, like we did, they got the same result that we got in Pennsylvania, they got nationally. But here's the problem. They did subsamples where they asked voters about their sex and they asked voters about their race. And when those things were mentioned, because of social desirability bias, Kamala Harris pulled ahead in both of them, which is a major, major problem because that's not an objective poll. Maybe an internal poll would conduct that, frame it a certain way and say, okay, if we set the narrative this way, this is how, the election could turn out. We've seen that done before, but the problem is that when you have the results the way that, it shows up on the ballot, just like our polls do, it's more in line with, this result here. In fact, you could even say it's the left of this result because Pennsylvania is probably going to vote to the right of the nation. By how much is another question. But it's just frustrating to see this happen. And that's why some of these aggregates, I'm not going to name names, but you guys know who they are. Yeah, they are showing some sort of skew into the more liberal direction, even though these pollsters were really never a part of the 2020 aggregates and the 2016 aggregates. FDU, I've never heard of FDU. I've never heard of some of these others. And I know people are doing polling more now. We're doing polling. We weren't polling before. But still, our polling is in line with a lot of these more mainstream pollsters that have a track record than these pollsters that come out of thin air. And this is crucial because if Donald Trump gets Pennsylvania, if he gets Georgia, we'll probably poll Georgia sometime, within the next few weeks or so. We'll poll North Carolina, poll Georgia. You guys can comment down below which state that you would like to see polled next. We will be polling more states in the meantime as we try to gauge where this race really is at right now. But if he gets Pennsylvania, he gets Georgia, North Carolina, it's over. It doesn't matter. I think he probably does get Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona at that point, but he doesn't need them. And that's not to say he shouldn't try in them, but it's evident that the pathway is clear. You pick up 2 states, you also pick up the White House. And according to the recent data that we have seen, Donald Trump is in a very, very good position in the state of Pennsylvania. And when you look into the data a little bit more, you look at the likely voter crosstabs, it shows that when we poll Trump v. Biden, it just seems as if Harris is kind of consolidating a lot of those maybe Democrat-leaning undecided voters more so than picking off any Donald Trump voters, as Trump in the Trump v. Harris sample actually goes up from 47% to 48%. We weighed properly regarding the voter file. But here's another interesting tidbit that I wanted to point out in the poll, because we've seen people poll, what is J.D. Vance's approval rating? What is Tim Walz's approval rating? And Vance, they'll say he's down by like 10, but 35% approve, 45% disapprove, or at least in terms of the favorables. Tim Walz, it's like 35% approve, 33% disapprove. But when we pulled them head to head, it's a jump ball. J.D. Vance with 43% in the likely voter sample, Tim Walz with 44%. That is basically negligible. So anybody saying that, oh, Vance is going to have this impact on the race and it's going to be negative, it is completely unfounded when you look at the big picture. And when we pulled by registered voters, which again, I think the likely voter screen is more important, but Vance was actually ahead when we polled by registered voters, although there were a lot more people who were undecided or said neither. And in terms of the sample we got, it was, relatively in line in terms of the racial demography than our national poll, which did, have a black female oversample. In terms of age, of course, there's going to be some weighting there, but in terms of voters 65 and up, this is the first time Trump actually led. And we know how polls typically operate. Polls will underestimate Donald Trump with seniors, but also overestimate him with, younger voters, or age crosstabs. Did make a lot of sense, a lot more sense than a lot of other, polls would have. And in terms of the voter base, the white non-college voter base, definitely Donald Trump is in a very good shape with that demographic in terms of polling the likely voter sample, which was not the case in the New York Times poll that we ended up seeing. So either way, Donald Trump in the Pennsylvania poll that we conducted, he's in very good shape. He's doing well. In terms of like the raw sample, he was flipping like a decent amount of voters that we saw that claimed they backed Biden in 2020 in places like Philadelphia city proper, which is interesting. I don't know what that exactly is going to mean for November, but if Trump is going to really, improve in the state, a lot of that could definitely come from Philadelphia city proper, and that would be something to watch, as well as northeastern Pennsylvania, which is a little spottier to poll. But still, you look at this in terms of the callback, Biden did have, a slight lead of respondents that said they voted for Biden. So it does seem as if Donald Trump is flipping some voters in Pennsylvania this cycle, and he's galvanizing a lot of these voters who are going to be first-time voters. But either way, you look at the path to 270, you look at this poll, Pennsylvania is going to be a close state, as I said, but Donald Trump very well does have that slight edge, and a lot of the current polling nationally we've seen over the past few days, poor methodology. Our poll, solid methodology, and it's showing that Donald Trump in the most crucial swing state has a lead. It's not over, a lot of work to be done, but he's back in front, which is absolutely huge. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.